Hello everybody, welcome back to the Bison Workshop. I'm Bob, and I think I need to do this video. Um, it seems like that I, as a person, am highly misunderstood, disregarded, and made a mockery of. And I'm not understanding this. So I'm going to have a few questions that I would like to have some answers to. First of all, let me start off by maybe giving you guys a little bit of insight on where I came from and maybe what I'm all about. Some people get me, but most people don't. I'm what you would call old school. And it isn't because I was taught that. It's because that's what I believe in. I believe in the old school ways. I believe that a man should hold the door open for a woman. I believe that a man should open the door for a woman and then close it for him in your vehicle. I believe that if you see somebody in trouble, that you should help them. And I've always felt that way. And that's in everything that I do. And, I come from a broken home. And no, I'm not proud of it. And I try not to dwell on it, but it's something that lives with me and will always live with me till my dying day. And basically, my mother hated me. She despised me to the point that on my 18th birthday, she literally told me that she wished that she had an abortion with me. Like every 18-year-old loves to hear that. But when I was 9 years old, and I'm going to tell this story, and I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm not looking for anybody to feel sorry for me. But I want you to know where I came from. Where I come from as a person. And how I turned that around to make me a better person. Because most people who come up like that turn into bad people. And I've never been a bad person. I've never had a bad bone in my body. I never tried to hurt anybody, and nor will I ever. But when I was 9 years old, my mom and dad split up or separated. My dad went to go live with my grandma, his mom, and I was stuck living at home with my piece of shit mother. And yes, she is quite possibly the biggest piece of shit person I've ever met in my entire life, and anybody who knows her will tell you the same thing, including my family. Even though they are not a family worth calling a family, they will tell you right off the bat that my mother was an evil woman. And I had two sisters. I had she wasn't even a year old, and my other sister was a year younger than me. And we went to school on a Friday, and or I think it was a Friday. Actually, it might have been somewhere earlier in the week because what we was doing, we had to study some spelling words. They had just started from 10 spelling words a week to 20 spelling words a week. So I was already struggling with 10. And I was never a good speller. And we had come home that day and we had to go in our bedroom and study our spelling words, me and my sister. So we went into the bedroom and we were studying our spelling words, and her boyfriend come. Let's just call him Neil. That was his name. I'm not going to tell you his last name because I don't want nobody suing me, but Neil come home and asked where we was at. So let's back up just a few months and explain to you what he did to get us to this point. He worked for a coal company, and I guess there was a bunch of conveyor belts laying around that he decided that he was going to make a paddle out of one of them pieces of conveyor belt. And this thing was about 4 inches wide and about 16, 18 inches long, and he actually carved a handle in it to fit his fingers, like you would see on a gun grip or whatever. And it fit his hand perfect. So if you stop and think about that for a minute, what was going through this man's mind while he's carving the handle to fit his hand? The thought process behind that shows intent to hurt. So he had that piece of conveyor belt paddle laying up on top of the refrigerator. So my mom tells him that we're back here in the bedroom studying our spelling words. And when he come in the living room, he hollered at us and said, "Bring your spelling words and come out in the living room." So we did. And he took the spelling words from us, our papers, and he proceeded to let us know that we were going to recite those spelling words and that we had plenty of time to study them. And we hadn't been there more than 10 minutes. So, I mean, we're already struggling with 10 spelling words. We got 20 now, and we had nowhere near the time to study them to where we knew them by heart. And remember, I was only 9 years old. And he had that paddle, and he set it beside him, and basically he was sitting in his chair, and we were catty-cornered to him, and then there was a doorway right here beside his head going into the kitchen, and my mom sat there with her back towards us reading a love novel, as if she knows what love's any about. So every time we would spell one of them spelling words, he wrapped us up against the legs with it, and he didn't just feather us. He hit us pretty hard. And I remember missing 14 out of 20. And my sister missed 7 out of 20. So she really didn't get it as bad as I did, but she got it bad enough. So the next day we go to school limping, both of us. And our teacher calls us up to the desk and asked us why we were both limping. Well, we told her what happened. Well, we finished the day out in school, and we walked home, and it was a pretty big walk down the holler to our house. And it was about a half-mile walk. And my grandma lived right down below us. We lived behind my grandma up on top of the hill. And every day we'd go to grandma's, and she would always fix us food and ice cream. We always looked forward to ice cream cones every evening. My grandma loved us dearly. We were her world. And she was making the ice cream cones, and you know, as kids, we were there with our tails wagging, so to speak. If we would have had tails, we'd have beat ourselves to death because of Grandma. But anyway, all of a sudden, here come a knock on the door, and they walked in on her porch. Well, she had like a porch that was enclosed, but then you had the main house door. Well, my grandma went nuts over them walking in her house, and it was the Department of Social Services and the state police. And after she jumped all over them for walking in her house, they commenced to letting her know why they were there. Well, I can still remember the look on my grandma's face when she looked down at us. She was furious. And she says, "Is this true?" Because we hadn't told her about it. And we told her yes. And they made arrangements for the state police guy to take me in one room, and the welfare worker, she took my sister in another room, and we showed them all the bruises we had down our legs. And so when they got ready to leave, they told my grandma to let my mother know that if she wasn't down there within a certain amount of time after getting home, and I'm getting kind of dizzy just talking about it, but my mom come home, and Grandma told her what happened, and we was getting ready to back out of the driveway. So when we was backing out, here come my dad, just happened to be coming at the same time. And Mom proceeded to let him know what was going on, so he followed us down to the Department of Social Services. And they questioned everybody and took us in all separate rooms and questioned everybody about what was happening. And they asked me if I wanted to stay there or if I wanted to go live with my dad. Well, I told them I wanted to go live with my dad, but they never put me with my dad. They put me in a group or a foster home with who was my teacher also. So I was in her class. It just so happened that my teacher was my foster mother, and I never had a moment's rest from her at all. I went to school with her, I went to class with her, I went home with her. It was a 24/7 thing with her. And there was times where my grandma would go to the grocery store, but it just so happened that my mother was with her, because my mother drove her. And every time I'd see my grandma, because she lived right behind the grocery store that we had in town, which closed up just before I moved here, or right after I moved here, actually. And I would always sneak over there to follow my grandma around to get candy. But she always bought me candy and sweets. And she was the only one I was worried about. Well, I kept getting in trouble for doing that with my foster mother. And finally, she went to the Department of Social Services and told them that that was going on. So they decided that they were going to move me to an undisclosed location so that my mother and father would never see me again, ever, and pretty much hide me from them. Well, my foster mother made the mistake, and I say that she made a mistake because now I wish I'd have never told her or told them what was going on. Because I would have probably had a better life with a better set of parents if I would have just kept my mouth shut and let things happen. But they made the mistake of letting me know that that was going to happen. Well, my dad come that next weekend to pick me up for a visitation, and I was going to spend the weekend with my dad. Well, we went up to my other grandma, my dad's mom, and I told my dad that they were going to move me because my bags were and everything was already packed. They were ready to move me that Monday. And I told my dad about it. Big mistake. Biggest mistake I ever made in my entire life was when I was 9 years old. So he goes and gets with my mother. And they concoct a plan that they were going to kidnap me from the Department of Social Services and take me out of state. So my gutless father went with my mother to my mother's boyfriend to borrow money to get me out of the state, to keep him from going to jail, to keep my mother from going to jail, and to keep my dad from being in trouble. At this point, my dad wasn't in trouble. He didn't do nothing wrong. The very moment that he concocted a deal with my mother to kidnap me is when he started breaking the law. Well, they did. They kidnapped me. They took me out of state. But they actually didn't take me out of state. What they did was ask my Aunt Linda to take me to their house. Well, no, wait a minute. Hold on. No, my Aunt Roma first. I went to Ohio with my Aunt Roma. And I stayed with them for a little bit. Well, then they come out there to live, and I ended up staying with my mom and dad. And then we moved from there. It's just an all blur right now at this point. You know, I moved around from place to place, from family member to family member. You know, and I've done that all my life. Up until I was 18, I was in the system, so to speak. Basically because I was not wanted. So, anyway, all this moving around. So I went to, I think by the time that I was put in a group home was when I was somewhere around, my ages and years is kind of blurred, but we ended up in Baltimore, Maryland. And we were living in a big old house on 1st Street in Baltimore, Maryland. Actually, it was called Brooklyn, which is basically the same damn thing, right next to each other. Brooklyn's in between Glen Burnie and Baltimore. And she didn't want me. She kidnapped me only to keep her from getting out into trouble, or to keep her out of jail. As soon as she got me to Brooklyn, she put me in Johns Hopkins Hospital in the psych ward. Now remember, I'm only like 13 or 14 years old at this time. And so I stayed in there for a couple months, and I ended up going back to my mom's. So then she calls the Department of Social Services and turns my turns me over to the Department of Social Services because she thinks that she can't deal with me. And I really didn't do nothing that normal teenagers did. Uh, it was over stuff like, I'll give you an example. One day I was across the road talking to the neighbor who lived across the road, which was my age, and we were just sitting there talking, and on the street corner, right in front, well, the sidewalk right in front of his house, and two of his friends who just happened to be female stopped and was talking to him. They really wasn't talking to me because I didn't know him. And my mother seen that, and she got mad because I was sitting over there talking to girls. And she made me come back over to the house, and I spent the next month in my bedroom looking at a ceiling. And there was even one time that she used the dishes as a way to punish me. And I'm going to tell you, my mother was a collector of dishes, Tupperware, Rubbermaid, Corning, you name it. She had it. She sold it. And she always had Tupperware parties. So, I mean, this woman was no shortage of dishes and pots and pans and plasticware and all kinds of stuff. And our punishment, no matter what it was, our punishment was to wash the dishes. Well, she took it to extremes. I remember one time she went in the house or in the kitchen, and she took every dish, every pot, every pan, every Tupperware, Rubbermaid, Corning, silverware, everything out of every cabinet and piled them up in the floor at the window. There was two great old big long windows. This is one of them big houses that had the long windows, real tall windows. And if you guys know how far a windowsill is up off the ground, that's how high this pile of dishes was. And it went, and the span wall of about 10 foot. This was a 10-foot wall, and up about this high. And we had to wash every single one of those. Me and my sister did this. We stood there for hours. I mean, literally hours. We hurt by the time we got done. And we got finished with them. We had them all put away. She goes and inspects every single one of them. And she found a speck of dirt on one dish. And she pulled every single one of them out and made us do them all over again. I'm telling you, my mother is evil. Very evil. But anyway, after all this was happening, she decided that she was going to turn me over to the Department of Social Services and turn custody over to them. So that's what they did. So they started putting me in group homes and foster homes. Well, then I went to, or not foster homes, but group homes. All of them were basically group homes. And I was in just about all of them. RICA, which is the Regional Institute for Children and Adolescents. I was in Maryland Training School for Boys. Of course, that one came last. I was in a group home in Frostburg, Maryland, called Long Stretch Youth Homes. And I was like 17 years old by that time. And I ran away because I was tired of it. I didn't want to be in those places no more. That was not where I wanted to spend my life, was in group homes. So I kept running away. And so me and two of my friends ran away, and yes, we did something we shouldn't have done. We took the director's car. And Craig, he was one of the guys that was with us, He was the oldest one, and he knew how to drive because we didn't know how to drive. Well, I knew how to drive, but I wasn't very good at it at that time. And we got caught, and I'll never forget that, man. That was probably the worst thing I ever done in my life. And when they pulled up beside us, I'll never forget the officer pointing a gun at us and told us to pull it over. And we did, or he did, and we ended up going to Maryland Training School for Boys. Well, when we got there, my mom decided that she was going to move away and did not let anybody know where she lived. And while I was there, there was a black guy that used to torment me and a friend of mine, bullied us, scared us to death. And I was scared to death in that place because I never knew anything about that. That lifestyle was not for me. And he kept tormenting us. And I finally got brave and told him that if he kept messing with us, that he might not want to go to sleep. Well, he went and told the staff member, and then they come to the class, and by the time I went to class, and interrupted the class and took me out of there and put me in the section where they had the razor wire. And the whole time I'm there, all I ever done was sit at this table with the encyclopedia. And this tells you how much I always loved West Virginia. I actually sat down, and there was two things that I did. Number one, I went and wrote on my own paper in pencil every word about West Virginia. I went to the encyclopedia, I looked at West Virginia, and I wrote it word for word from beginning to end. After I got done with that, I decided that I was going to draw a blueprint of my dream home. And this is all I ever done. So the staff member comes to me and calls me up to the desk, and she says, "How come you're here?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Why are you here? You're a good kid." I didn't have nothing else to tell her except for my mom didn't want me. So when it come time for them to release me, my mom was nowhere to be found. She had hidden from us and wouldn't let nobody know where she was at. So my aunt ended up having to take me. Well, let's just stop talking about that because it's starting to upset me. But, I ended up in the group home, the last group home, long stretch youth homes, and when I ran away from there, I went to the boys' prison, and then I was released, and they ended up, let me see, how was that? No, I'm wrong. After I left the Maryland Training School for Boys, I went back to long stretch youth homes, and that's when I kept running away. I just, they couldn't keep me. They even took my clothes. I mean, this has been a long time ago, so forgive me, guys. Some of my stories may be a little twisted around. They're exactly the truth, but they're just, some of them are kind of mixed around. Some are ahead of others and some are behind others, so it's kind of hard for me to keep up with it because it's so much. And they even took my clothes that didn't stop me. I ran away, went to somebody's clothesline, got some clothes, put them on. Well, one night I ran away and I went to the Starlight Skating Ring in LaVale, Maryland. And I was hanging out with some people that I had met, and we was all sitting around a table, and I was probably like 17 and a half. And here come the one of the staff member from that group home and two of the people that lived there like me. And it was two big old black boys. And they come up to me and I turned around and looked up and oh shit. So they said, time to come back. And I said, all right. So, I mean, I figured I was caught. There wasn't nothing I can do about it. I'm going to have to do it. So I got up and they were behind me. And I walked over to the front door of the skating ring. And they made one crucial mistake. They let me go out the door first. As soon as I went out the door, I darted. I ran as hard as I could, clear to the end of the skating ring, back up behind the skating ring, and there was a real big steep hillside that I went up and took off. And when I got to the top of the road, or top of the hill, there was a little driveway that goes to like 5 or 6 different houses along that hillside. And I just kind of turned left and went up there, and there was a little building that set off to the right, falling in. The roof was sagging. There was a whole bunch of appliances and stoves, refrigerators, just all kinds of stuff just laying in there. It was just junk. And I got up inside of all them appliances, and there was a stove with the door about halfway open, just enough that I could look through the stove and see through the door. And these two black guys was like 5 feet from me. I heard every word they said, and all of a sudden it started pouring cats and dogs, raining. It was so loud that it was unreal on that tin roof on that dilapidated building. That's how hard it was raining. But I could still hear them. And I remember one of them saying, "You ain't gonna catch that country boy. Once he gets in the woods, you'll never find him." Because I was a redneck. And so they decided to leave. Well, I sat there for, I know, an hour praying. I prayed like I'd never prayed before. I was at the end. I didn't know what to do. And I just felt like at 17, my life was over. Well, I told God that I was going to walk out there to that driveway and I was going to turn left. And the first house I come to that had a porch light on it is the house I'm going to take that you want me to go to, and that's the one I'm going to go to. So that's what I did. I'll never forget when this girl opened the door and she had her hair was shaved on the side. And she kind of looked like she had a mullet, but she didn't. She had just had a bunch of ear surgery or something, I think, and she had a shaved spot on the side of her head. I think it was on both sides. And I'm sitting here, water dripping off of me, and crying, and she says, "Hold on a minute," and she shut the door, and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna be standing out here, ain't nobody gonna come to the door. Well, another woman comes to the door, which was her mom, and she was in a robe. I had interrupted her bath. She came to the door and she invited me in, and she sat there on the couch with me for at least an hour, and I cried my eyes out on her shoulder. And I'll never forget it. And that woman is still dear to me. She's dead now, but I have one thing from her that's an angel that my stepmother had, which was her. She made it possible for me to come live with her. And it just so happened that she was a foster mother for the Department of Social Services. So, because she was a foster mother, told me that that was the house I was supposed to be at. So, yes, I might have my issues with God, but it's been so long since a miracle like that has ever happened in my life. It's hard for me to understand why my life has been the way it is. And it's just been one thing over another, one right after the other. It's just, things just don't click for me. And I never had the upbringing that most normal people have. I never had a family. And I basically taught myself how to be a good person. Because it sure as hell wasn't by my mother. Now, my mother has haunted me ever since then. She basically hunts me down and does everything in her power to take away from me what little bit that I have brought to learn for myself. I really can't explain it, but I'll give you some examples. She even tried to take my son away. My son has what you call a port wine stain, and it goes up his arm, all the way up his shoulder, up his neck, behind his ear, and down his back shoulder. And it's a birthmark. And I can't tell you how many times I've had the police called on me, Department of Social Services called on me over my son, and my mother trying to take my son from me, trying to accuse me of beating my son. She even went so far as to tell people I was going to put my son in a microwave and cook him, of all things. So, it's just been one thing after another. And just finally, in the last couple of years, I get here where I belong. This is where I started out. This is where I started out when I was 9 years old. I should have never been taken from here. If they would have left me with my foster mother, she would have taught me things. She would have experienced, or had things for me to experience, like learning how to play a guitar, or learn how to play a keyboard, or an instrument at all, period. I would have probably had a better education. Instead of running around from one group home to another, or boys' home, or living in the street. I've literally lived in the streets to the point where I was eating in dumpsters. I literally picked food out of the dumpster to eat it. That's how bad it was at one point. I would find industrial parks where on the backside of all your industrial parks, there's big, long industrial parks where they have different businesses and docks for different companies. Well, on the backside of those, all of them basically have a heater room. That's where their furnace is. And some of those guys would leave the doors unlocked, and I would actually go in those rooms to keep warm and sleep in the corner of the boiler room. I think it's called a boiler room. And I've been known to go to McDonald's and beg for food. Well, I'm not a beggar. But when you have to do what you have to do, you got to do it. Or you're not going to survive. You know, when survival mode kicks in, you'll do just about anything to survive. And I have. I've done just about everything I possibly can to survive. And I made it this far. And I made it to the point where I do have respect for life and how it should be. To me, helping the next person is key. Because after all, that's what God put us here for. And, you know, we're here to help each other. And if we can't help each other, we're hindering what we was put here for to begin with. And I just don't understand why the things that goes on today in today's world actually occurs. You know, people have forgotten how to be kind to one another, and they could care less about anybody but themselves. And the world has gotten to the point where good is not good and bad is good. Let me give you some examples. Let's talk about this guy Floyd. And people can get mad at me all they want, but the truth is the truth, and if the truth hurts, so be it. This guy Floyd that happened to die because, I don't know why. Police officer might have hit him, I don't know, or held him down and smothered him. I don't know what happened. But the fact remains, he died. Now this man robbed people. He was in a gang. He was no good. And I'm first to tell you, I just don't believe. That's my opinion. That doesn't mean squat. But my opinion is that he was a bad enough person that it did not deserve for his family to put a GoFundMe up and end up getting more than $1 million. For doing what? What did he do? Alright? Let's talk about Bonnie and Clyde. Most famous killers and most revered killers that probably walked the face of the planet. When they died, they became the most famous people in the world. People loved them. For what? For killing people just because they enjoyed it? They didn't kill them to rob them. They just killed them because they wanted to kill them. And yet, they make millions. I can't count. I think it was 20,000 or 15,000 people joined or attended their funeral. Really? That's what gets people's attention? You know, I don't understand it. That's where my questions come into play on this video. My question is, why is it that bad gets more views let me try to give you an example. Alright, let's say, for instance, it's no secret that I have put up a lot of videos. I've got over 500 videos. I think it's 500. Might be more. Probably 600. I got 600 videos. Well, I just deleted my last video because I was getting a lot of people talking to me like I was a piece of shit. And I just couldn't do it no more. So I went ahead and deleted that last video. And I've put up videos showing people how to let's say, for example, fix a lamp, or fix this, or fix that. And my goal was to show people how to do things without having to throw it away, put it in the dump, fill the dumps up, and then eventually the dumps will be so damn full that we're not going to have enough room for ourselves, because the world's going to be nothing but a dump. So, to keep the world from falling apart, I figured that it was my duty to do my part to show people how to fix things instead of throwing it away and buying a new one. You know, we're in a throwaway world where people don't know how to do nothing because schools don't teach you nothing. Schools don't have shop classes. They don't have anything like that that teaches people how to actually do a job. Instead, they're teaching our children how to be lazy, that it's okay to turn your parents in for correcting them. You know, they turn this world into a nightmare. So, my question is this. How come it is that bad people who do bad things to other people get, what's the word I'm looking for? They get rewarded for doing the bad deeds. But the very moment that I go on there and I ask somebody for help, I'm deemed a beggar. I'm deemed a negative Nancy. I'm deemed everything in the book that's bad. And I'm supposed to just sit around and take it? I don't get that. You know, I was just talking to a buddy of mine, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I mentioned his name, Tim. He was telling me that this woman, old woman, had a cat that died, and she started a GoFundMe and made $60-some thousand over a cat. I didn't lose, well, I lost a cat. My cat died. Precious died on me when I first moved here, right after I moved here. I never told anybody about that. I'm sure you guys have seen that my cat's not been in my videos no more. She died. And I didn't ask nobody for no money. So, why is it that when I asked, I'm deemed the most despicable person that you would ever want to see? It's almost as if I am public enemy number one. So please, guys, help me understand. I'm not understanding. If I'm seeing something wrong, please show me what it is that I'm seeing that's wrong. Help me understand so that I can fix the problem if I'm the problem. I don't believe that I'm the problem. But if I am, I'm willing to fix that problem. But again, I don't think I am the problem. I think that the world has went to hell in a handbag and people just don't care no more. You know, there's people who would pay thousands of dollars. Well, used to be. There used to be people who would pay, figured I'd redo that statement. There are people who used to pay a lot of money to go to a class to learn what I teach people in one video. Just one. And I've got 600. Yeah, some of them's a little off the wall because I do get high strung from time to time. And sometimes it's hard for me to keep my mouth shut. And sometimes I do say the wrong things. But that's just me. I suffer from depression, bipolar. I've had many surgeries on my back. I've got a bone degenerative disease. And that's why I have no teeth. They were falling out to the point where they had to actually pull every one of my teeth because there was no bone left to hold them. I could sit and wiggle all my teeth at least 1/8 of an inch back and forth. Literally. They were just flopping around in my mouth. So they finally had to get rid of them. I don't even have enough bone in my mouth to actually hold false teeth. So that's why I don't have false teeth. So I had to retrain myself to talk without teeth. And, you know, I've just been through hell, guys. And I don't understand why everybody is so down on me and making me look like the bad person. And I know it like I know my name, that somebody is going to have something negative to say about my life. They're going to say, it's your fault that you was beat. It's your fault that you was in a group home. It's your fault that you're not a smart person. Well, you know what? I beg to differ. I'm probably one of the smartest people that you'll ever meet. Believe me. And if you ever want to test that theory, you come on and test me. I'll prove to you. I'm probably one of the smartest people, and it's hard for anybody to get anything over on me. I've actually caught people trying to rob me before they even thought about robbing me, just from their actions alone. Because when I watch people, I watch their facial expressions, how they move their mouth, how they move their eyes, which way they move their eyes. Because if somebody moves their eyes a certain way in a lie, there's only one way that a man will look when he's telling a lie. So, and I'm not going to tell you my secrets. I'm just telling you that I have experienced enough by some of the things that have went on in my life, and I've learned from them. Like, for instance, one time down in Baltimore City, in one of the group homes, I ran away because I just didn't want to be there. And when I ran away with another guy. We went to his buddy's house who lived near that place. We all was walking down the alley, and I'm lucky I'm here. That night, if the guy who stabbed at me would have been a half inch in either direction, I'd be a dead man right now. Because he stabbed at me and he missed. And they made a deal with me that if I whipped his ass that they would let me go. I beat the frickin' tar out of him. I had all his blood all over me from where I had beat him. And after I got done, it was not pretty. I told him, I said, you told me you'd let me go. Wrong. They did not let me go. They beat the fuck out of me. And that was probably one of the worst ass whippings I ever had in my life. All 7 of them were standing over me, beating the fuck out of me and kicking me in my chest. I had my hands over my head, trying to protect my head. I couldn't protect everything. And they beat the shit out of me. At the very moment I was getting beat, my 2 so-called buddies were hiding behind 2 cars, watching the whole thing happen. When I get up, they finally let me go. I limped around the corner. They come out from behind the cars and said, "Oh, are you okay?" "No, you stupid motherfuckers. Why didn't you help me?" Of course, I didn't have a whole lot to say, but that's what I was thinking. I was in too much pain. But anyway, I just wanted to ask some of them questions as to why it is that I get the treatment that I do on my YouTube channel when everybody else that doesn't deserve what they get. And I'm not here to judge nobody. Don't get me wrong. I'm not judging people, but I know bad when I see bad, and I know good when I see good. And I just don't understand why bad gets rewarded and good gets punished or ridiculed. or deemed the worst person on the planet. And I am far from that. So please, guys, stop misunderstanding me. I'm the first person in the world who would come to your bat if you need it. But I'm not going to do it if all I ever get in return is somebody telling me how bad I am or putting me down. You know, enough is enough. So if you ain't got nothing nice to say to me, I would appreciate it if you would just leave my channel, don't say another word to me, and just forget that I'm even around. Because I really don't need it. I mean, for God's sakes, I just had a freaking heart attack a couple weeks ago, and I don't need the stress. And that's all I've done since I got out of the hospital is stressed. And I mean stressed to the point where I can't even hardly do anything without crying my eyes out. I can't even watch an episode of Survivor without crying. So, you know, whatever you have in your head about me, if it's not good, keep it to yourself. If it's good, by all means, I'd like to hear it because, for God's sakes, I need some good information. You know, I'm just trying to find a home. That's all I'm trying to do. I've been in the streets. Once I finally get a place, I've been kicked out of one place, or actually not kicked out. I was run out of several homes because of my son's friends. My son's friends used to come to the house and rob him blind. And when I'd call the law, after I find out who had his products that they stole out of our house, they would want to go out and wait in front of the house to gang up on me, to beat me up when I walk out the house, because I called the law on them for stealing my son's stuff. So I ended up getting run out of town there. I've been run out of places over stuff that you wouldn't even imagine being a reason to be run out of a place. Then you get to the point where you got greedy landlords that think, okay, this guy's done fixed my home up and made it nicer. Now I can kick him out and I can make more money off of that property. That's happened to me 3 times. This is the 3rd time. I've had enough. I'm getting tired of helping other people make money at my expense. And I just thought that my subscribers loved me enough to show their appreciation for what all I've done for the last 6 years, showing you guys how to do things to save money. I don't think that was too much to ask. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is too much to ask. But I need you guys to tell me what is too much to ask and what's not enough to ask. So, by all means, explain that to me, because I need to know. It's not that I want to know, I need to know. So I can change if I'm doing something wrong. I don't think I am, and everybody I've talked to said I'm not, but my subscribers have a different view on the way I am. So, and I'm not saying all of you. I have some really, really, really decent subscribers that I'm very thankful for. But I've got some that are very vindictive and very ready to pounce on me at a moment's notice. I don't get that. If you don't like me, why are you subscribed to me? Are you just that bored that you need a pastime to make me feel worse about myself? Are you jealous of me? Are you mad at me because I work for everything I have? What is it? Explain that to me. And I'm really sorry that this is a long video, and I need to stop this video because my battery's probably going to go dead on my camera. So I just like to have some closure here. I need to know what I'm doing wrong, and if you guys think I'm doing something wrong, and if I feel like that you have a legitimate reason for me changing something I've done, let me know. I'll change it. I just don't believe there's any legitimate reason for the way people treat me on my channel when I'm trying to help them help me. So, I put these videos up because I want to help the community. And the community is the world to me. But it sure is changing for me. I'm getting a bad taste in my mouth, and I don't like how people are today. It saddens me that this country has gotten so bad that good is bad and bad is good. I don't get that. So, guys, please forgive me for making such a long video, but it needed to be done, and I haven't done a long video. This is probably the longest video I've ever done, and there's a lot in this conversation that needed to be said. So, just remember, guys, I have feelings too, and judging from what I've been through in my life, I don't deserve to be treated the way some of you guys treat me. And I said some, I'm not saying everybody. So please don't take that I mean everybody, because I don't. So don't forget to have your Trump coffee today. And don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. And if you need to help, or feel like you need to help the channel to find a home, I will put a link to the GoFundMe in my description. I'm just trying to survive, guys. And if I'm doing wrong by that, then I guess I'm wrong. Anyway, you guys have a good one. Later.